Every time I chat with Lorena, she triggers some type of a story. So this is why I'm not supposed to be in the kitchen. I always tell this joke that I didn't get married for nothing, because my wife cooks, she cleans, she does all the stuff. And I needed a maid and a cook to take care of me. But I was joking around with Lorena about how the woman is supposed to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. And in my case, my wife was that way most of her young life, because my wife is just that way because she's a California beach girl. She doesn't like to wear shoes. It's my fault because she was always pregnant, although it's not all my fault. But she's also a good cook. My wife is a great cook. See? I blame this on her. It's my fault for eating, but I blame this for her cooking so well. I've done a couple things in the kitchen that I wasn't supposed to do, and so I'm not supposed to be in a kitchen because I will mess something up somewhere. Even though my generation grew up without parents, most of the kids cooked for themselves, and we all had keys for the front door and stuff, which is actually true. I didn't cook. I simply just played all day and waited for my mom to cook dinner whenever she came home, or brought dinner home from work, whatever it may be. I never cooked. Also, when we were growing up, we didn't have microwaves and stuff like that. You had the stove and the oven, and you could cook on there. I know from growing up that way, I know how to reheat food on a stove. Now you don't have to do that with a nuker, but I didn't even do that when I was younger. I would always just have munchies or cereal, munch out on something, a cookie or cereal or something like that. I didn't cook. There was this one time, I think I was about 10 years old. This is in the old Lamer house. And I wanted some frozen chicken nuggets. And I've seen my mom cook. I've watched her cook before. So I put some oil in a pan and I put it on the stove and I turned on the stove. Now in California, most stoves are gas, so you have fire. That's fine. Doesn't matter if it's fire or electric. So I turned the fire on and I sat there and I was waiting for it to boil. Now, if you know anything about cooking, oil does not boil. I was used to watching my mom make like spaghetti and stuff. So you put water on the stove, you wait for it to boil, you put your stuff in there. So I'm sitting there waiting for the thing to boil, and I waited a very long time. And I'm like, well, it ain't gonna boil. Let me throw my chicken nuggets in there and see what happens. So I grab the chicken nuggets straight out of the freezer and I chuck them in there. That was not good. If you've ever worked in a restaurant and you walk by the fryer, whenever you have new people or when you're just messing around, you always put water on your hand, flick some over in there. Because when the water hits the oil, it like makes a loud noise and kind of splashes and stuff. So it freaks people out. So if you do work in a restaurant and you didn't know that, do that. Don't put a lot of water in there. You're going to hurt somebody and it's going to make a loud noise. Just put some on your hand. You know how we used to like flick people with water? You're in the bathroom washing your hands, you flick them. Do that, but do that over the fryer. Get your hand wet and just walk by and flick some droplets in there and it'll freak them out. So anyway, I put these frozen chicken nuggets directly into this oil that's been on high heat for who knows how long, and it went nuts. And they were burnt as soon as they hit the oil, and they were still frozen. It was just this, it was loud and it made a mess and it was really bad, and I could have caused a fire or something. It was bad. But that's not all. When we were already married, Brian was older, probably about 6 or 7 years old, and we were in Atlanta. My family was having Arby's, and Arby's is not cheap. They used to have the coupons, 5 for $5 and stuff. It's very expensive now. But when you take an Arby's, I'll see if I can find some pictures online. It's foil. But then when you open it, if you're having like a roast beef and cheddar sandwich, when you open it, you're now looking at a paper side. It's like paper on one side and foil on the other. So this is only going to be half my mistake. It's half theirs too. So I opened it up and I went to take a bite and it was not hot anymore. I like my food really hot. So I picked it up and put it in the microwave because I'm looking at my sandwich on the paper and I'm thinking, like McDonald's, it's paper. I wasn't looking at, there's foil on the other side. So I chucked the whole thing in the microwave and I hit start and it started to spark, like going around, like jumping around. I grabbed it right away, but where it did actually hit inside the microwave was actually like these burn marks. So I did do that. The microwave still worked and there wasn't holes. It didn't make holes. It just made burn marks. So it was still pretty good, but that could have been very dangerous too. So don't put Arby's in a nuker. There was another time, I think this was in the Simi house, somebody gave us a lava lamp and it stopped working. So I was looking at this lava lamp and I was like, well, dang, it's got wax. Those balls that move around, those are wax. And when you heat up a lava lamp, the oil gets hot and then the wax gets hot and kind of floats up and down inside the oil and makes a nice little thing with the lamp in there. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's open this up because it broke. Let's open it up. Let's dump out this liquid. I don't even know what the liquid is. Let's get the wax out of it. Let's make candles. Why not? Pour them into these cups. We'll put some strings in there. We'll make some homemade candles out of it. Why not? Something fun to do, right? So I open it up. I pour out the liquid. Now the liquid smelled very similar to like a kerosene. It was some type of oil, but it almost smelled flammable. I really don't know what it was. The wax was hard because the lamp wasn't on. It wasn't working. It wasn't hot. So you had these balls of wax in there and the top of the lamp opened kind of like a jar. So it had an opening in it, but I couldn't pour out the wax. So I took the metal thing off the bottom and I stuck it in the microwave. So we melted the wax and we poured it into pudding cups, these cups we used to have for pudding, and we put strings in it. Well, first of all, the wax was had the oil in it. It's not like a ball of wax sitting in oil. It's like the wax has the oil all made into it because it separates while the lamp's moving and then it hardens again. It's like in it. So it's kind of weird to explain, but it also smelled flammable and I shoved the thing into the nuker. Also, when I dumped it out, there was like a spring and some other stuff in the actual lamp. I'm wondering if that's the broken part. But anyway, I shouldn't have done that. So we put the wax in the cups with the strings. We put them in the refrigerator and I put a note on the refrigerator. Don't eat the pudding. It's not pudding. And my wife came home and got angry. She wasn't home at the time, of course. She got angry because I smelled up the house with that smell of that whatever that oil or whatever it is was. And the wax never hardened even though it was in the fridge. And that's when I figured out that oil stuff is all mixed in with it. That's why it didn't harden outside of the lamp. There was another time I was making something. I don't even know what I was making. I had a pound of ground beef and I don't know what I'm doing. So my wife has a cabinet with spices in it. I'm like, well, let me put a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. By the time I was done, I had put a little bit of every single thing in the cabinet into the meat. Now, if you go to the store and you go somewhere like a 7-Eleven where they have a fountain drink, and you call it a suicide when you put all the stuff in there. I made like a suicide meat. It wasn't very good. Don't do that. There was another time where I was thinking, hey, what would be really good? I think I can cook some eggs, scramble some eggs in a pan. I think I can do that. What if I made them vanilla flavor? For some reason, that sounds good. So I got some eggs out of the fridge. I scramble them like in a cup first. And then I put the pan on the stove, heated it up. I made it really hot. I then took the butter and chucked it in there, and the butter it turned brown pretty quick because I had it so hot. And then I put some vanilla extract into the eggs because I scramble eggs in a cup and then I dump them in the pan. I don't scramble inside the pan. I dumped that into the pan and the whole thing caught fire. As soon as I dumped it in there, it went poof, and it turned black. And I was like, wow. And then I looked down at the eggs. They were still raw, but they were black. And I was like, what the heck, man? What is going on here? So I'd already ruined it anyway with the butter being brown. So I took it off, and then my wife's like, what are you doing in here? I was like, I'm trying to make vanilla eggs. And I was like, I can't figure it out. I don't know what happened. And she was like, you ain't very bright. There's alcohol in the extract. And when it hit the pan, it caught fire. And it's not, I don't know that. I'm just thinking it's vanilla flavor. I don't know. That's why I shouldn't be in a kitchen. I'm sure there's many, many more things I've done in the kitchen that I can't remember. Maybe someday I could sit here with my wife and tell some stories of things that I've done around the house, which I've ruined, because I'm always doing something dumb. So maybe we can do that in the future. Maybe also in the future I can tell some stories about what I do when I'm out in public. So remind me, everybody, keep up on me for telling other stories, because they keep coming up and I keep forgetting things until Lorena triggers them. So hope you enjoyed that dumb little story.